Okay, so you need to switch over. You need to. You didn't. You need to emulate NumberPad. You need to change some settings. So go to File, User Preferences. Thanks, buddy. Just that one in the back. User Preferences. All right, Input. Yeah, and then on the left-hand side, change it. Oh, okay. So what happened is you probably changed all these settings last time, but forgot to hit Save User Settings. So change it to left select and emulate NumberPad, and then come up here and type Use Select. Okay, good. So now hit Save User Settings. Okay. Perfect. Thanks. Yeah. All right. So now hit 5. Oh, I got it. Oh, okay. And then one snap in front. Okay. To get that 3D cursor back in the middle, which is what you want to have happen, everything's going to spawn right there. Type snap 3D cursor. Snap cursor to center. Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So you should all be in this view. All right. Front ortho view. Am I recording now? I think I am. Yay, we're recording. Testing, testing. So I always kind of start in this view. I'm going to add my sphere. Shift A to add a sphere. Teacup is kind of half of this. Sometimes it's good to work from an image. So I'm going to find an image of a teacup. Oh, I don't care about that right now. I don't really care about this either. So any of these would work. Simple is probably best. Although we could get a little goofy, but yeah. We just need sort of like, I don't know why I'm spending so much time thinking about this. All right, this one. Ultra realistic. That's an image. It's like somebody's drawing. All right, here's an IKEA teacup. Apparently, it's a 2000 by 2000 pixel image. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm just going to save this. If you think you might reuse these images that you're downloading, save them in a folder. That would be good for you, like wherever you're organizing things. I usually will create like, scour, source. Just try to label things as much as possible. It will help you later on. All right. Then I'm going to open a window over here. I'm going to change this window to be UV Image Editor. All right. And then using my mouse wheel, I'm going to scroll until I find the Open button. And then I'm going to go into Source. There's my teacup. Open the teacup. So now I have a nice little picture of the teacup. All right, just down here. All right. So here's my teacup. I want it up higher right now, so I don't care what that is. I don't care what this window is doing. I just want the teacup up higher for some reason. Okay, so there we go. My mouse is acting weird, sorry. So teacup. So we can kind of see it is sort of a half circle. It's not a perfect half circle, of course, or half sphere. See what you got me doing? It's got a little handle, and then we've got that saucer, which, you know, I think we'll probably also start with a sphere for the saucer. Now to get to our sort of half shape, you can very just easily, you know, go into edit mode. I like to work, well, you'll want to work, for this instance, you'll want to work in wireframe so that you're selecting the vertices on all sides and not just one side. Wireframe is just Z on your keyboard. So if we're in solid mode right here, the opposite of wireframe, right? If I try to select vertices here, it's only going to select on the side facing me. All right. There's two different like group selection tools. One is your circle selection, and one is your box selection. Circle, helpfully, is C in edit mode. B is box. So like if you hit B, you'll get these crosshairs, like these lines. You just drag a box, and it selects everything in the box. But notice over here that I'm only selecting the stuff that's facing me because I'm in solid mode. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So you want to be in wireframe when you're doing this, so that when you select all those things, it selects all of the faces. Does that make sense? Everybody? Okay. The other method then is circle mode, which you hit C, you get a little circle, and you can use your mouse wheel to expand the diameter of the circle. And then you can kind of paint. It lags a little for me on my with my mouse here. You can sort of just drag and select a bunch of things. It's good for selecting. Well, it's good to select things with either. This is good for just getting like certain vertices or maybe a small group of vertices or something. If you hold Shift and drag it, you'll deselect stuff. Mouse wheel, like if you click the mouse wheel button will also do the same thing. Notice it is dragging like crazy for me. To get out of this mode, you just hit Escape. All right, there's really no other way to get out of like the selection mode. So just hit Escape. A, just to reiterate, A selects all or deselects all. Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna use my box. Yeah, I'm gonna select down to here. I'm not selecting above that because this cup does not curve back that direction. So I'm gonna delete everything, all the edges and vertices that are selected right now, which is gonna leave me with a cup that ends sort of, what am I trying to say? Sort of flat, right? It's not curving back in. The edges aren't curving back in. The edges come right up and stop. So that's what we're gonna start with. All right, X. What do you want to delete? I want to delete the vertices. Boom, gone. Okay. All right. So getting this kind of little bump here where it's very smooth and round here, but then gets a little squattier. I don't know. Kind of towards the bottom is actually pretty easy to do. This is using a selection method called proportional selection or proportional editing. And what it does is when you select something and you have proportional editing turned on, there's a radius, like a circle of influence that is centered on the vertice or group of vertices that you have selected. And it moves everything in with a strength that is directly proportional to their distance from that center. Okay, so if they're further away from the center of your selection, they move less. If they're closer to the center of the selection, they move more, right? But it's moving everything in a kind of nice way to kind of deform and move vertices and faces organically, I guess, naturally. So what we're going to do for that, how you turn it on, it's down here at the bottom, proportional editing. It's this little circle. It's off right now. You can just turn it on. You can click on that box and go to Enable. Don't worry about connected or projected 2D. We're not going to use those right now. Just Enable. Or you can hit O on your keyboard. That also turns it on. There's different types. God dang it, go away. There's different types of settings. The fall off. There's a random fall off, constant fall off, linear, sharp, blah, blah, blah. We're going to use smooth, which is in and out easing. Ease in and out if you remember your animation. Those of you that have taken motion design. Okay. We're just going to keep it at smooth for now. But playing with the other settings gets you different kinds of results. Okay. So then we're going to select, I think like this many. Okay. So I'm going to select all those. I'm going to hit G to grab them and see there's that radius. This is the radius of influence. All right. So the vertices that fall outside of this circle are not going to move at all. The vertices that fall inside of this circle will move. Does that make sense? No? That doesn't make sense? Molly, are you shaking your head no, or it's something else? No? You're good? Sure. Okay. So I hit G. I've got proportional editing turned on. I'm going to constrain to the Z axis, so I'm only moving down. And I'm just going to kind of move down a little bit to change that curve. I'm just trying to match, it's a little difficult to see up here, but I'm just trying to match how this gets a little squished right here. That curve is just a little squished. That's all you're trying to match right now. And again, you don't have to try to follow along. You can't just watch. Okay? I just don't want you to get lost and freak out and then miss something, essentially. I am recording everything, but so we're just making a nice little squat teacup. Boom, done. So it's a little bit better now. It's not so I don't know, not so sphere looking. Still has that bit of a bottom that we're not going to use. Like a teacup that has a little point is going to tip over, right? That's not going to work for us. So I am going to grab that point. I'm going to leave proportional editing on because I'm going to move it up a little bit to flatten it. Hopefully I didn't move that up too much. I did move it up too much. All right, so then I'm going to turn proportional off. Still have that same vertices selected. G to move it, Z in the axis. I'm going to flatten it out right there. It gives me a nice flat little bottom, which we can play with and manipulate to make into something like this here in a few minutes. Oh, I might as well do it now. Okay, so we have that done. Let's solidify our teacup while we're thinking about it. If you remember how to do that, just you want to go to your modifiers. It's the wrench. So you need to have this object selected, okay, which means it needs to be yellow. So if you have that object selected, go to the wrench to add a modifier, and you're going to add solidify. Second column, fourth from the bottom. You can see that it made it a little solid. We're going to add some thickness to it. All right, that's some good thickness. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. So now I've got a nice thick teacup. And now I can edit the outside bottom here to get this kind of shape that we have going on here. I have some of these teacups, and if I'm remembering correctly, this bottom footing is like 3. It's like it's a ridge, and then there's like a ridge that you bring down, and then there's 3 little notches in the ridge. So I'm thinking about it. All right. Turn this back on. I only want to edit the outside. I think it's going to be like this ring. Yeah, it wouldn't be this ring. That's too much. Oh, maybe it is this ring. All right. So what we're going to do, Control 7 will snap to the bottom of something. Remember 7 on your number pad or your numbers at the top if you're on a laptop gives you your top view. Hitting Control gives you the opposite view of whatever view button you're hitting. So Control 7 would bring me to the bottom. Okay. So I want to look at this bottom. We're going to select all these faces. So I'm going to Control Tab in Edit mode over to Face mode. And if you remember from Monday, hitting Option and selecting a face will do what's called Edge Loop Selection. All right. So it'll select all of those. Or you can hold Shift and click each one individually, which sounds really terrible and tedious. Or you can bring in your circle selection, scale it down, and just sort of drag around, and hopefully your laptop's not as laggy as mine. This would also be an okay way to select things. Not the most efficient way, of course. More efficient than holding Shift and selecting each one individually, but option selecting is your best bet. Okay. We're going to subdivide these, which means we're going to cut them in half. Or actually, I'm sorry, we're not going to subdivide these. We're going to add an edge loop in there. So we've done edge loop selection, which is when we select a whole bunch of faces that are together. But now I want to add an edge loop, which is like cutting these in half in only one way. You wouldn't subdivide it because what that would do, it'd be like, it would chop each of these little spaces into 4 because it subdivides it horizontally and vertically. All right. So what we want to do is hit Control R. And if I'm not moving my mouse at all, it puts it automatically in the middle. This is saying, is this where you want this loop? If I move out, it goes to the other faces. If I move to that edge, it's like, oh, you want to do it vertically. I want to put it right here. So I click, and now if I expand outwards, I can control where it is on those faces. Okay. So what I'm thinking about, like in my head right now, what I'm thinking is that I want to put an edge there so I can pull this little part out to make this foot. Does that make sense to everybody? It's on the bottom of the cup. You're essentially extending out this tiny little ridge on the bottom of the cup so you can have that nice little foot. Yeah? Everybody see that? Chloe, you okay? Alright. Yeah? Okay. Alright. So I click again to say, okay, that's where I want that face. And I can go back into face mode. We have an edge loop there. Hold Option, select all of those. I'm going to snap back to my front view. Now, this is different than just like moving it. Well, I guess we could just move it. There's a couple different things you could do. We could extrude it, which leaves the original faces where they are and creates new faces and pushes them out. Or we can just grab it and move it in the Z, which will grab all the faces and just bring them down, which creates like a hollow shape on the inside. That is more efficient for the shape for the kind of thing that we're making. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to grab it, hit G and then Z to constrain the axis, and then move down. Notice that it's kind of pulling that, it's making a diagonal face. It's not coming down cleanly like I kind of want. So that's wrong. So I'm going to snap back. I'm going to hit E for extrude and pull down. So this is what extrusion does. Okay, so notice how it's not moving any of the original edge loop or anything. It's just creating new faces, right? Grabbing moves the existing faces, edges, vertices, right? The existing parts of the mesh. Extruding just brings creates new geometry. So we'll extrude. We'll bring it down a little bit. That's pretty good. We're going to want this sort of curve here. So I'm thinking about that right now. Yeah, all right, that should work. So we're gonna let's decide where we want them. It would be nice to, oh man, I don't know how many faces do I have selected? 32, so I have 32. Oh yeah, so up here, I don't know if anybody's seen this up at the top. It's hard to see with the theme I have selected right now. But this gives you information about what you have selected and what's in the file. So if you don't have anything selected, it'll just tell you the stats for the file, right? Like how many vertices there are, how many edges there are, how many faces there are, how many triangles? Yeah, I guess triangles. The memory that it's using, the object that you have selected, sphere 0. So if I select those guys, then it tells me, oh, you have 32 faces selected. So I know I have 32 faces. The reason I want to know this is because I want to divide it by 3 and be able to like find the exact third where I need to push the parts up. Or you can eyeball it. I'm just being really anal about it, I guess. So I have 32, so that's not an easy number to divide by 3. So 10.25? Yeah, something like that. 10, yeah, 10.6. No. Anyway, I want to do it. 6, yeah, okay, 6.66. So I need to like put one every like 11 squares essentially. So we'll grab this one. I'm going to use, this is when using 2 windows to edit is kind of fun. So I grabbed that, and then I'm going to extrude and move up. Oh no, I'm not going to do that. Oh right, let's do that instead. Let's add a edge loop in here because we're going to cut this in half because I want to essentially delete like half of one of the squares. So Control R while you're moused over here, right? See if when I move down, you just move to that middle point, it puts that in. I kind of want it right in the middle, maybe a little higher than the middle actually. No, middle sounds good. Click it right in the middle, that puts that edge loop in there. Come back to face mode here, grab that one, and we're just going to delete these guys, faces. Now when you delete them, see how it kind of, I don't have an edge loop on the inside, so there's no way to make kind of a clean face right there, like clean vertices. That is an issue. That's a problem. So I need to step back. We'll come over here. I need to step back, angle it so I can see that bottom, add an edge loop in the bottom as well. So now I've got all those edges there. So grab it. Yeah, that's a foot. Yeah. Then I'm going to delete, I'm going to select, I'll do it up here. I'm going to select these, those 3 faces right there. Okay. Hit X, delete the faces. Now it's still hollow, but if you go into vertex mode, I'm going to center on that vertex. Sorry, I'll make this a little bigger. If I go into vertex mode here, I can then select these vertices, hit F. Sorry, I messed up. Select all these vertices, hit F. Select these vertices, hit F. And there you go. And that makes a nice clean foot, right? That shape that we want. Now it's not curved or anything yet, like in the image, but we'll get there. We got to make the very basic geometry first, and that is usually means it needs to be kind of square. And then we'll do some things to it that will round it out and make it a little more organic. So, all right, so I'm going to count. So I know I had 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I feel like there is better. Yeah. So I'm going to hold shift. So I'm going to just do these at the same time. Alright, so I'm going to delete these guys. Faces, go back into vertex mode. If your rotation gets really off, you can just select from the area that you want to work on. Select one of the vertices and just hit your view selected button, that period that we set up, and that will center your view and your rotation right on that vertice, so it's much easier to move around. All right. Control R. All right. So I made my little feet. It's all good. Sweet. Now I just need a handle. Right? The handle, we are going to just... how do we want to do the handle? There's lots of different ways we can do the handle. I think the easiest way is going to be to pull a face out and extrude it. Or extrude a face. So kind of decide where or what face you want to pull your handle from. Think I'm going to pick this one. See, is ours. This kind of comes down there. Yeah, we'll call it that. Make sure, of course, they're in the same column, right? They're aligned. Then just hit E to extrude it. Notice that that blue line is not aligned with any of the global axes, like the axes for the world. It's aligned with the object's axis, the normal, or the face of the axis. Okay. So if I pull that out, hold it down, but that's okay. I can bring it back up. That's what we want to start with. It's not really... Actually, you know what? Let's go back. Instead of that one, I'm going to do this one. All right. I'm going to pull it out this way, although that's probably... You can kind of eyeball it as much as you want to, since our cup is not really... The faces aren't really aligned, the edge is aligned. Although we could... Actually, to make that easier. To make it all easier, I would rotate so that you have a face aligned with an axis. So instead of the edge lining up with the red axis, I'm aligning these dots with that red axis. So that when I pull the face off, it can just pull it off on the x-axis. Snap to the x. Pull it out. Yeah, that's good. All right, so we did that. Then again, I'm just going to edge loop it. Oops. The top one. I'm going to cut a face there. I'm going to edge loop down here. Kind of cut a face here. Grab this face. And then I'm just going to extrude down. If you want to get really crazy, you could try to match this curve. We could do that instead. That's really advanced editing. I think we'll stick to just extrusion and stuff for now. You know, if you want to just make it kind of match, delete that face, select that face and delete it, go back to vertex mode, and then all you're doing is like we did on the feet. You're selecting those vertices and then connecting them. All right, so now we have like a really basic teacup. All right, with a handle, feet, solid. The handle is kind of wonky, but we're going to fix that in just a second. So this is starting with the basic geometry. Now there's a subdivider, or I'm sorry, a modifier that we can use called subdivision surface. And what this will do is it'll smooth out all of this really rough geometry. All right, so if I hit subsurf, see how it automatically started smoothing some of this out? So you build your basic geometry, like in blocks. It's almost like you're building an armature, like if you're doing paper mache or something, right? You build like a really stiff kind of armature and then start adding the paper mache on to make it smoother and rounder, more organic. And you're doing that with this as well. So the higher subdivisions that you do, the rounder it looks because it's just creating more faces. But if I go into edit mode, you can see that my mesh lines, my vertice and edge lines do not match up with what I'm seeing when I'm in object mode. You can, so what we're really looking at, what's going on with this modifier is that here's the original geometry, and then it's just weighting the way that the geometry looks between those points. It's trying to curve them as much as possible. All right. This is the trick for making geometry that looks complex, but making it in a very easy way. Starting with something that's not very complex, it's very polygonal, and then adding a subsurf modifier to it. This is how you would make like a human face. You'd build a really basic kind of skull structure, and then add a subsurf modifier to it, and it would smooth it all out, like skin. Okay? So that's what I want you guys to work on right now. Don't worry about having a really wonky looking handle. For now, that's totally fine. Later on, we will fix that. But I want everyone to try to get to this point. Okay? All right, I'll come around and help.